A couple of weeks ago, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses came out with a historic announcement, basically giving the green light to people that want to go to university and pursue additional education. Now, this has given a wave of emotions to a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, because that's something that wasn't a possibility for a lot of us. And while I've talked about and made several videos about that aspect of it, what I haven't done yet is gone to the old JW version of Reddit. It's a forum where current believing Jehovah's Witnesses, pioneers, elders, people actively going to meetings, go on there and discuss things. And I was curious what was going on inside of people's heads when it comes to this announcement, how they were reacting, how they were feeling about it. I have had a couple of hypotheses that proved out to be pretty true, but please, this isn't like YouTube Wally. This is like just Wally talking to you. The last comment that I'm going to read on this one perfectly sums up the problem that they had with not allowing people to go to university. And he does it in this like beautiful, simple language. And the fascinating thing is not a single person commented on the thing that he said, even though it was brilliant. Anyway, watch to the end if you want to get there. YouTube Wally's back. Drop like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Run the intro. Now, quickly before we get into the Jehovah's Witnesses comments, I just wanted to add something about my personal perspective with this, because when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I married a European Jehovah's Witness, and boy howdy, it was like on the road to Damascus, I was like, whoa, this is something I wasn't expecting. This is something I wasn't aware of. There are two different religions, it feels like. The doctrine's the same, but the social aspect of it is completely different. So in Europe, in the Netherlands, there were people, brothers, none like in Bethel that I saw when we visited there, but there were even elders that had a full beard and it wasn't a big problem. Most people go to university there because it's the Netherlands and it's not like a gigantic financial burden to attend university. Funnily enough, they have a system where like if you don't actually finish and graduate, then you would start to incur costs from it. Very clever system. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But they have just a different set of principles or rules that they go with. I think maybe one that will stand out to a lot of people, especially if you're American. You know that if you are dating someone, that you are not allowed to be alone with that person in any situation. They have all of these goofy little rules and situations where it's like you can't be alone together unless you're like out in a public area, and even that might be a little bit sketchy unless you have a chaperone. So 24/7 all the time, you have to have eyeballs on you. When I went over there, wasn't an issue whatsoever. The first time we went to a meeting for service, they just like, okay, you guys can go off, the two of you. And it was no big deal. And I was like, wait, what? Like, and then conversely, when she came over here, it was like, wait, what is this stupid thing about? Like, this is ridiculous. We're adults. We don't need someone watching us 24/7. Like, isn't God watching us? Why would we have to have someone? And that's just the approach that they took with some of the rules that seem to be localized depending on your elder body. If there were certain little niches, especially within America or in the Americas, that Jehovah's Witnesses had, formed over time about dress, about certain things like university, they just didn't follow those because they're not in the Bible. They just kind of forged ahead with their own path. And like she would say, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. It's dumb. So stupid. And she didn't. And you got to respect it. So anyway, that is my perspective that I had about my time as a Jehovah's Witness. And so when it came to this whole business about the college and university, I already knew that there was going to be a gigantic divide, because on parts of the planet, this has already been normalized and integrated into the Jehovah's Witness culture. Like, it's not a big deal. People for generations have been going to university and still been able to, pioneer or be an elder, whatever the case is. Whereas in America, it wasn't that way. So there was clearly going to be a divide. Now, when we come to an online forum, that was a very prevalent sentiment that people were giving. And it shows you like the location, or people can put in the location of where they're from. And all of the people that are saying, this isn't a change. What are you talking about? They've allowed people to go to university for years. I don't see what the big deal is. Most of them are for Europe, are in Europe. Whereas people that are in the Americas, well, that's a completely different story. So anyway, I'm not going to include all of those comments because I think I've just given a brief summary of what it's like for European Jehovah's Witnesses. But now that we got that clarified and out of the way, you can understand how these people are very frustrated, because when they're going to this forum to vent their frustration, they're getting met by people that are saying, no, you are just like pretending. You decided for yourself that you didn't want to go to college. So don't come complaining and whining to us that you are struggling to make ends meet now, when it's simply not the case. The reason for this was an inconsistency with how policy was actually implemented throughout the world. So first one that we'll read here, and this guy is one we'll come back to a lot because he's really struggling with it. And I'm sorry to sound so negative, but it's infuriating being told university and beards and clinking glasses was always okay, and it's my elders who were overzealous. I'm sure in a few years people will tell me birthday parties were always okay, and say it was just my elders who were adding rules. It was hard to be different in school, and realizing it was all just my elders making up rules is very, very hard to hear from me. And the way people dismiss it is frustrating. This is a sentiment that I understand, because when this news broke initially, that was we had a separate little microcosm of the EXJW community, reacted the same way. I don't know why are you whining? Why were you listening to the elders? You're kind of a chump for listening to the elders. And people have this very like sneering attitude towards those that were the really hardcore good Jehovah's Witnesses, and be like, well, I guess, hey, that's your bad. So I think this person was feeling a lot of those same frustrations, because at the end of the day, he wasn't looking at the elders as being in control of his spirituality or protecting his spirituality or guardians of the doctrine. He was looking at the governing body. And so if you're looking at the governing body, and now it's 2025, and now you're finally hearing this clarification, and then you have other people saying it was okay all along, you're like, well, why didn't the guardians of my spirituality come to rescue me? Why didn't they offer me that spiritual protection that they said they would? Because clearly there was a divergence between certain regions. Next one. Wow, I don't know how to feel about this update. I guess great for the young people of today. Now they can make informed choices about higher education and future employment without undue scrutiny and reprimand. At the end of the day, you're either going to serve Jehovah or not. Any environment can take you out of the truth if you allow it, whether it's Harvard or Burger King. And I think this is so true. This like really sums it up. If you are going, like, this person gets it. You're either going to stay a Jehovah's Witness or you're not, is how I see it at this point. Like, the people that are going to stay, the governing body could literally change every single doctrine, and they'll be like, oh man, yeah, this is how it was all along. And they'll just have this spiritual amnesia where they just won't remember the last 100 years of Watchtower doctrine. It's a very fascinating thing to look at, but I like that. Whether it's Harvard or Burger King, anything could take you out of the truth. Another person, this would have been great for me to hear 20 years ago when I was a young honor student from a poor family, but it's too late now. All that sacrifice and struggle just to hear it's okay now. I don't know what to say. And that's so raw and real. Like, all of the struggle, all of the years that you just kind of put to the side and didn't pursue your career or anything. And a lot of these people, I imagine, are getting older too. You got to start asking yourself the question, what the heck has it Armageddon? Like, they told my parents and my grandparents that they were not going to graduate high school. And now here I am in my 50s and 60s. Holy. So yeah, anyway, dear brother, I don't understand why you're comparing these three things. In my opinion, they have developed in different ways. As for education, it has always been true that it was not an obstacle to an appointment. Yeah, this is a comment from someone that is trying to explain away, to try and make sure that you are blaming not the governing body, but just your local elders. So here we go. In fact, someone could still be considered exemplary, as the elders book also confirms. The issue of the beard, however, was different. It did not automatically make someone non-exemplary, but it was mostly frowned upon by the brothers themselves. A sort of unwritten internal rule had developed, not so much from the governing body, but from the general opinion. For example, a 2016, I think, magazine stated in some places a beard was well accepted. As for toast, it has always been clear that we are not obsessed with the origin of certain customs. However, since our publications mentioned it, many preferred to avoid it, even if they were convinced that it no longer carried any religious meaning. So this is the JW amnesia. This is like rewriting your own mind in order to accept these changes and not see the fallaciousness of a God who is choosing an organization to speak truth. And it turns out that for the last 100 years, that organization was speaking untruth. It was not giving the actual truth, and it has to continue to update things. And when you look at that, you say, well, why would a God use an organization to spread lies in order to bring people to the truth? Like, does that make any logical sense? If you were God, would you say, yep, I think the best way of getting people to protect their everlasting eternity, their soul and their salvation, is to feed them lies? And hopefully they'll buy these for long enough that they'll eventually come to the truth. It seems improbable. And then another person said, thanks for those words. It's hard for me to accept that these brothers can apparently make up so many rules like beards in school when there was never anything wrong with them. Not going to school limits me every day now, and it will for the rest of my time on earth. I'm assuming that this person thinks that they are of the anointed by saying that. Interesting. Let me know if you are all celebrating birthdays and allowed to have long hair on a guy so I can too. My elders don't allow these things either, but now I don't know what's an unwritten rule and what's frowned upon and what's an actual rule. And that is the tough part, right? You are living by a set of rules that you don't understand. Like, if there's going to be these crimes and punishments, it needs to be a standard that everyone can follow and accept. And if there's cultural differences, then allow for those cultural differences. It's not super complicated. Doesn't seem like you'd have to wait to the big 25. Anyway, just read my comment above. Maybe it will help you. I also grew up in a poor family and was offered a scholarship and every expense is paid. Still, I didn't went to the university. I did not regret that decision at all. Well, happy for you. It's wonderful that it works out for you. And I'm just like, I want to just light off some fireworks for you. But you have to remember, there are other people that had a different experience. And so you can't just explain away like, well, it worked out for me, so I don't know why you are complaining about it. Here's a little screenshot, just because it was easier to understand the context. So someone was replying to someone that said, I would say I'm happy for the sacrifice I gave my God. I'm also happy for the others that don't have to. Too soon for that, bro. This is a difficult subject for me. Yep, and to make it worse, reading the comments, it seems it was just our two halls that had this problem. Beyond our two halls, everyone had beards and a college education. That's the frustrating thing when you're trying to tell a Jehovah's Witness, no, this is a real problem. This thing exists. And they just look at you and say no. Like when I would start belting out and yelling and screaming and shaking my fists in the air about CSA within the Jehovah's Witness organization and the Australian Royal Commission, it was like, no, that doesn't exist. We don't do that. We don't have that policy. And it's like you're talking to an avocado. Like at a certain point, you're like, okay, you know, I've tried talking to this avocado and it has never responded a single time. I'm just going to move on with the rest of my day to protect my own health. You give up because it's just pure delusion that you're met with. Yeah, it seems that way. I get you can't change the past and all of that, but choices such as not pursuing higher education can have long-lasting negative effects. I'm feeling those effects in my very tangible ways. It's a struggle to make ends meet. And yes, my situation is far from the worst, and I'm thankful to have stable employment. But my line of work costs me a lot in the way of my physical and mental health. There is no recompense for that. I just have to live with that for the foreseeable future. I might as well save my breath. I'm just gonna be told I'm wrong. So again, people are just venting their frustrations. Everyone that was saying, hey, this kind of sucks, this is kind of weird, like, doesn't it make all of the sacrifices we made invalid? And people are just saying, no, that was just your elders. I don't know, I guess just unlucky. It's a very frustrating situation to be in. I hear you, brother, but we can argue the opposite as well. Are you sure if you get the higher education, you'd still be in the truth? Take as an example a couple of my congregation. They have been loyal in the truth. They have 3 sons and 1 daughter, very intelligent and smart people with great school grades. They all chose to go to university. Guess where they are now? Again, I'm not against a person getting any kind of higher education, but we can be looking to the past regarding our choices, especially regarding what we accomplish in Jehovah's service. If we keep looking back, we might as well think, what if Adam didn't sin? This is like the avocado. Like, I mean, how far are you going to look back? You may as well say, well, what if Adam didn't sin? Are you going to cry because Adam's ate the apple? Come on. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps there, bucko. And it's like, no. There were policies and rules that were in place that were followed by the elders. It came down from the organization and followed by local elders that have affected me in a very real way. And for you to be saying that that never happened, that that didn't exist, that the governing body didn't say it, is absurd. And these people are replying to that by saying, how far are you going to look back? You're going to be mad about Adam? It's unbelievable, truly unbelievable. Okay, it wasn't my local brothers alone. So many are framing this as overzealous elders in my congregation. Higher education has been repeatedly discouraged in magazines, talks, and demonstrations. A couple are mentioned above, but it's been recently as the dramatization at the convention with the couple who was weak / almost apostate trying to get the young brother to pursue education. What was the point of that part? If education was a good thing, then was the couple doing a nice thing for that kid? Man, how true is that? Like, what was the point of that whole thing in the convention video? If you haven't seen it, I've made several videos about it before, but you can go back and watch those. I'll put a link in the description. But essentially, there was a couple that, you know, by the end of the little play, they had all turned apostate, but they were trying to like influence this believing Jehovah's Witness family by telling their kids, hey, their kid, not, you know, they didn't have any kids, but the other family, the Jehovah's Witness family's kids. Anyway, hey, when we were young, when me and your dad went to pioneer school, they told us that we would never graduate. They told us the end was just around the corner. And look at us now. We're still here. So why don't you think about planning for your future a little bit? Look at us. We're still Jehovah's Witnesses. They hadn't turned apostate yet. So why don't you just at least consider or think about it? And it's a good point to bring up, isn't it? Like, if they were going to make this change, why put that in the summer convention? I promise you there are parents and teenagers that made a decision about their education because of what they saw during the summer convention. And then this update comes when it's too late to enroll in college or university. Like, how pissed are you going to be after hearing that at the convention, sitting down, praying with your family and saying, okay, it looks like this is a sign from Jehovah. And then bingo, bango, bongo, old baldy David Splain comes out and says, just kidding. That would piss me off like you wouldn't believe. Now, this is the last one that I'm going to read. This is the one I was talking about because I think this is perfect. I'm very happy with this update. I am an elder, currently serving as a regular pioneer and assisting the LDC while also studying an online master's degree. I have always struggled with the organization's take on higher education, even though I understand that perhaps individual elders may have exaggerated the governing body points in some congregations. I think he's trying to be nice to not get scolded. In my country, studying at university, even part-time and online, was almost an automatic disqualification from being appointed as a ministerial servant / elder. So pause right there for a second. That is like an elder giving you the raw, serving you your vegetables. He says, "Oh, choo-choo, open up the train, we're coming in." It is the case that there were millions of Jehovah's Witnesses that if they chose to go to college or their kids chose to go to college, it was basically an automatic disqualification from being an elder or ministerial servant. Like pretty much automatic. And that's for millions of people. So I appreciate that a current believing elder just says it in plain language, doesn't beat around the bush at all. Now this is like the perfect point. It's better than any point I could have come up with on my own. But if a brother watches Netflix for 4 hours a day, twice as much time than I spend on my master's, there's no issue. My brother-in-law criticized me publicly a few months ago for studying, even though I pioneer while he preaches 2 hours a week and dedicates 20 hours a week to a marathon training. And most people sided with him. University education has become synonymous with sin in many countries, and I'm so glad the brothers have clarified this point. Now this guy gets it. He understands. He's living the experience. This is absurd to think that a Jehovah's Witness is allowed within their doctrine to waste their life. It's okay. You can go and sit your butt on the couch and watch Netflix for 4 hours a day. We got no problems. Spend 4 hours a day pursuing a degree? Well, we were going to take issue with that. And I just when I read that for the first time, I sat back in my chair and I was like, wow, that is a perfect way to put it. Watchtower is okay with you wasting your life, but they're not okay with you improving and enjoying it. If that doesn't sum up the experience we have all felt being Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't know what does. They are so happy and keen for you to waste your life doing nothing, standing by a cart, going to meetings, talking about preaching even though no one preaches, regurgitating and reiterating the same points ad infinitum. They are so happy to let people waste time. And yet if they want to spend their valuable time trying to improve their life, they immediately want to cut that off. How fascinating it is to think that the leaders of this organization probably had this thought process going through their minds of saying, no, as long as they're doing stuff for us, it doesn't matter. Even if objectively it's a waste of time, as long as it's for us, it's good. But if they want to do something for themselves, we have to stop that. And so for that, I guess I'm glad that the governing body is loosening up a little bit and allowing people to make these personal choices and not, why did I say choices? It's so weird. I said it with a Z. Choices. And they're able to maybe just think for themselves a little bit. Do for themselves a little bit. Hopefully, we'll see what happens here in the future, but plan for their own future a little bit more. And step by step, they're becoming just a normal religion. With all of that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget, curiosity is the fountain of youth. Now have a good ass day.